What was it that that interested you about the Air Force?
The flying.
It was.
I wanted to fly. All right, yeah. And I guess at the end of high school, in all honesty, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was a 18-year-old shy, scared kid, quite frankly, and I knew I wanted to fly, and I knew that I probably couldn't get into commercial flying, so I thought, okay, let's join the Air Force. Yeah. There were 300 of us selected or from across Canada to meet at London, Ontario, to the officer selection training. Do you know that out of those 300 of us, only 17 of us ever got our wings?
Oh my goodness.
So it was very extensive and very rigorous.
What was the selection process like?
You had to do all sorts of tests, and they took you down to Toronto and put you in the centrifuge to see if you'd black out, and they tried everything they could to break you, and doing all sorts of things to see if you would panic, to see if you would break down, because they said if you break down on the ground, we don't want you piloting in an airplane. Yeah.
So once you'd gone through that selection process, was there training again after that?
Oh yeah, we had 18 months of training after that. We started off in London, Ontario, in Centralia on chipmunks, and then I got sent out to Claresholm, Alberta to go on Harvards, and then from Harvards I went on to Portage la Prairie on T-33s, and at that point they selected, at that time you could go one of three ways. You could either be an instructor, you could fly CF-100s, or you could fly Sabres overseas, F-86s. And so I was selected to fly CF-100s. Yeah.
Who was your navigator?
Ivan Ranson. Yeah. And Ivan's still alive. He lives out in BC. And lifelong friends. Yeah. By the way, we were married. Like I took my CF-100 training at Cold Lake, Alberta, and there would be 8 or 10 pilots and 8 or 10 AI guys there at the same time. And now once we got on CF-100s, you actually chose your navigator or your airborne interceptor, and you were literally married to him, and you flew with him because your life depended on him and his life depended on you. The very first night trip on a CF-100 that I was with my navigator, I should call him an AI, took off, and on the CF-100 it had a problem with the nose wheel. It would sometimes lock, and you had to get your gear up below 150 knots, or it could jam. I heard this horrendous crack and bang, and I thought, oh boy, what's this? Anyway, I throttled back, got her down slow, tried reselecting, and I couldn't get the nose wheel up. It wouldn't go up, wouldn't go down. And this was at night. And so what I did was I throttled back, stayed well below the 150, and flew by the control tower low and said, can you check my nose wheel, because it's not. And they determined the nose wheel had been cocked back at 45 degrees. We flew around there to burn off fuel, and all the other guys, they came in and landed. And so I had a choice between bailing out at the time or belly landing it onto the runway while I actually had my main wheels down. And so Ivan and I chose to put her on there, and we didn't want to bail out at night. And now, when the thing was flying and was going along, it had a very positive angle of attack, so I was able to keep the nose wheel up. But as the speed dropped, the nose starts dropping, and once it gets below that certain angle, it just slams down, and it went wham on the runway, and scraped along. I hit the brakes and stopped, flamed out the engines, and then meanwhile the fire trucks are all out there. So Ivan and I, we scrambled over and jumped down off the airplane and got out, and Ivan, he was nervous. The first thing he did was lit up a cigarette. Well, he's standing in fuel, and there's jet fuel all over the runway around us. He's standing in this fuel, lighting a cigarette. The fireman gave him what for? Anyway, it was funny. I was nervous. I must admit, while you're in that situation, and I still maintain that even to this day, you're trained so much, and you simply follow. And pilots, I personally believe, I guess they get responsibility pay, but a bus driver has the same amount of responsibility as a pilot, but they don't make the same salary. And you're trained to the extent that you follow through exactly with the procedure that you're supposed to do, but once it's over, you start shaking. And oh man, you shake. So I had to get debriefed, and then the next morning I went again. Yeah.